Hello and welcome to today's livecast. I'm starting a few minutes early. Oh, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, if we haven't met before. I'm starting a few minutes early just because it's a busy launch day. You might have questions. I'm here to help. We're here to help. So today is a big day for us at Stonemaier Games. Today is the launch of Finspan, designed by David and Michael, developed by Elizabeth. I'm also the developer for all Stonemaier Games products, and I'm so excited for you to play this game. Really, I've played this game, I think 8 or 9 times over the last couple of weeks. I taught it at a local game store. I taught it to some friends. I taught it at Geekway to the West, teaching and playing, and I am just having a blast with it. So I really, really am excited for you to have it. If you want, you can get the deluxe components. This is an in-stock product. So this is in stock on our web store. If you order it, we're ready to ship it. With the caveat, actually 2 caveats. One being that we're getting a lot of orders today. It's a launch day. And so I appreciate your patience in knowing that if you received 10,000 orders today, you wouldn't be able to ship them out all at once. It would take some time. So it's going to take a few weeks. 3 caveats. 2 is that champion orders, if you're Stonemaier champion orders will ship first and then non-champion orders. And if you want to become a champion, you don't have to create 2 different orders. So just put everything into one order. Put your champion in that order, put Finspan, put Between Two Castles, if you want, in that order, put everything you want in that one order. And then place the order. The 3rd caveat, the last one, is that the freight shipment to Europe, our fulfillment center in Europe, is taking a little bit longer. This was fully expected. These days, ships have to go around the bottom of Africa to get up to Europe because of attacks in the Red Sea. So they just take a little bit longer to get to Europe. And so those orders for Europe won't start shipping until early February. But we're already in late January, so it's not that long away. And our fulfillment center there is ready for that shipment. Anyway, I'm here to answer any questions you have today about anything that we have going on. I have my other screen to share if we need to talk about today's newsletter. Yeah, I'm here to help with anything that you want today. And I have some topics that I'll talk about as well. Let's see. A lot of people say that they bought the Ryan Finspan, which I'm really excited about. Let's see. Steve is here to remind me about what my chocolate of the day today is. Steve, I'm glad you asked because it's very, very cold in St. Louis right now. And so what I was craving was something warm. And so I made drinking chocolate the other day using some like cocoa powder, some chocolate bars. I melted a dark chocolate bar, a 45% milk chocolate bar in there. And I used, this is what I found is the secret ingredient for making drinking chocolate. I added Cool Whip. Cool Whip adds a little sweetness for sure, but also it kind of thickens it a little bit in addition to those chocolate bars. So I made some drinking chocolate, and that's my chocolate of the day. I didn't actually make it today. I made a bunch of it a few days ago and have leftovers. Garrett mentioned something. Garrett says, I saw your touching post about a movie called A Man Called Otto, which is also based on a book called A Man Called Ove, and your dad, my dad. Such an interesting coincidence. I hope you're doing well. Thank you, Garrett, for saying that. I had a really emotional experience on Monday, an unexpected emotional experience, because I was watching this movie called A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks. Great movie, highly recommend it. And I did not make any connections between the movie and my dad until the very end of the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but there just some things happened at the end of the movie that made me realize that Otto shares a lot of characteristics with my dad. My dad was very handy. It felt like he could fix anything, that he could make anything, and that he knew everything. And Monday happened to be the day that my dad died a couple years ago. My dad passed away from cancer complications on January 20th, 3 years ago, the day that I happened to be watching this movie that seemed to be all about my dad. So, really good movie, and one of those good, like, cathartic grieving experiences, one of many that I've had over the last few years due to my dad. Let's see. Question here. Super quick question about the super hot release everyone's excited for. Does Between Two Castles have a new game trays insert, or is it the same as the old one? It is the same as the old one. We were actually really happy with the original one. I don't know if I can quite. Let's see if I can open it up without everything falling out here. So the only difference between Two Castles Essential and the original Between Two Castles is that we added the expansion to the core box. Yeah, you can kind of see it here. Here are the top layer of the inserts here. Really great design from Noah at Game Trays. So essentially in the original core game, we left room for an expansion, and then this, I believe this is the one that came with the expansion, and now it's just part of the core game. And we did so, I think, either without raising the price at all or barely raising the price at all. So yeah, if you've ever heard of Between Two Castles, or if you haven't heard of it, it's a wonderful game. It's a delightful game. It's a competitive game about partnerships where you're building a castle with a player on your right and a castle on the player on your left. Only your lowest scoring castle between the two will actually score. So you have to balance the tile drafting, the tile placement between those two castles. It's a great game, I would say, for communication. There's a lot of communication that goes into this game as you're working with two different people. Carol says, do you have a general idea when Stonemaier will make a version of Tokaido Duo? She played it at a cafe, or playing it at a cafe soon, and it looks neat. Yeah, so we acquired the entire Tokaido brand last year, and we're working towards releasing Stonemaier versions of all Tokaido products. We're not planning on changing any mechanisms in the game. We're just refining the rules, refining a few of the components to make them a little bit more intuitive to use and play with. And so we've done that with Tokaido. Our Tokaido release will happen in about 2 months. I think it's shipping out of China right now. Tokaido Duo, I have made my revisions to Tokaido Duo, and I believe we're going to start working on the graphic design soon. So probably later this year. I think we're on track for later this year for that, Carol. Matt says, will there be neoprene mats or Finspan? So for us, it's natural rubber mats. We don't make neoprene, and natural rubber is a little bit friendlier for the environment. But I get what you're saying there, Matt. And for Finspan, we did not make play mats, those types of play mats yet. We wanted to first see if what people thought. People actually wanted them after they bought Finspan, which I know is a little bit of a risky strategy, but it's also risky to go the other way. So what we're going to do is in probably about a month, when most people have gotten their copy of Finspan, or many people have gotten their early adopter copy of Finspan, I'm going to send out a survey, a poll on the World of Wingspan newsletter to ask, do you want rubber play mats, and how many do you want? And if we get enough interest there, and I think we probably will, but if we get enough interest there, I'll use that to make an initial order of the natural rubber play mats, and then we'll make them. The big challenge that I will highlight when I mention that is that they will not fit into the box. It's just there is not enough room in the Finspan box for them to fit. So that is a challenge, and I think some people don't care, but some people want to know that and might care about that. Garrett says, did I see the Parks 2nd edition announcement? Any thoughts? So I thought something was really clever. There's something behind the scenes. I don't know if they'll talk about it all that much. And I don't actually, this is not information that I have fully behind the scenes. But I think the key for Parks 2nd edition, as far as I understand, there are some mechanism changes, but they also changed the art. They found some other artists. And the art that they used in the original Parks, beautiful, stunning art, but really tightly protected by the company that makes that art for the national parks. And so I wonder if maybe that license expired, or they decided just not to deal with the hassle for it. And I say this partially because we had to deal with the hassle for that art, even just for the Parks Rolling Realm, the Rolling Realm promo for Parks. We had to deal with that hassle, and I can't imagine what they had to deal with at Keymaster if that was what we had to deal with just for the promo for it. So I'm excited to see the new art in the game and see what they did with it. Molly says, I had to go dairy-free and I've been enjoying finding the vegan chocolate bars in my area. That's awesome, Molly. That's exciting. If you ever come to St. Louis again, I will have to show you Clementine's ice cream. I think Clementine's ice cream here in St. Louis has what I believe is one of the best, like, fudgy chocolate vegan ice creams I've ever had, or whatever you can legally call it. I don't know if it's technically ice cream anymore. It's almost more like gelato. It tastes like a frozen chocolate pudding almost, and it is. I believe it is incredibly good. And currently, they're doing kind of a vegan month of January. If it was just a little bit warmer, I would go over there. But it's been so cold here. But because they have a version of that with peanut butter swirled into it, that's really, really good. Let's see. Alex says, when will Monty Python Span-A-Lot come out? I love the memes for Finspan. Angelo says, when will the Finspan demo be available on Tabletopia? Probably, typically we do it on the release date of the retail version of Finspan. So that would be February 21st for brick and mortar stores. The online release is a few weeks later. I think that's what I told Tabletopia for this one. Let's see if I told them something different. Tabletopia Finspan. What did I say? Yeah, I don't know if I have a date for them. I told them January 31st. Okay, so I told them a little bit early. So January 31st is the date. Pete says over 3,000 copies of Finspan sold in an hour. I'm guessing that's on the US web store. We don't have that many in the other web stores. Pete says, how do you determine your initial production runs for your different games? The puzzle of demand forecasting. There's a lot that goes into it. Part of it is Alex. Alex is in charge of demand forecasting. He talks to distributors to see what they think, and then he uses that information and past information to make the guess for how much we need for the web store as well. I also have a formula that I created just to give us some more use for expansions when we have more information about the game and how the game is sold. Yeah, a lot of us like using past information that we have and talking to some people about what they think for the future. But it's a guessing game in the end. We try to do our best to guess and even overestimate to make sure that we have enough for the first printing, and we can always make more. So if we ever run out of a product, in fact, today I think we ran out of the Finspan disc golf disc really quickly. I love that more people are getting into disc golf. I wasn't expecting it to go that quickly. But if you were someone who wanted that and you weren't able to get it, definitely please put your email in for a back in stock notification. Because in fact, I'm going to make a note about disc golf right now, because we really, really do use those back in stock requests to determine when we're ready to remake something and how many of that thing to make. Steve says, how is Geekway Mini? Yeah, I'll talk about this briefly. I'm happy to talk more about it, but just in case there's a lot of questions about Finspan, I'll talk very briefly about Geekway Mini. This was a little convention here in St. Louis over the last weekend. I think around 300 to 400 people there. I had a wonderful time with the most wonderful people, including, I see Jeff is here in the comments. My coworker Susanna was there. Got to hang out with Rebecca and Andrea and Sam and Sean and Tim and Amber, Becky. I know there are more too. There are a lot of some other new to me people that I met as well. Jilly and Joe and Angie and Beth. I played a game of Finspan with them. Just a lot of amazing people. I had a great time. The games that I played at Geekway Mini, I'll just run through them really quick. There's an Instagram post about this as well. Played Wandering Towers, played a lot of Finspan. I did my first public play of Vantage, which is nerve-wracking, but it went really well, especially given the circumstances of a very loud convention hall. Wondrous Creatures, Windmill Valley, Lucky Jack, The Gang, Hierarchy, Bag of Chips, Stock Exchange, Art Society, Sea Dragons, and then on my game night a few days before that, I played Mistborn, the new deck building game. Some really great games among them, and some of them new to me, some of them not new to me. Yeah, I had a blast. Jeff says, have you been keeping up with BGG's 25th anniversary list of their Hall of Fame game inductees? Would you anticipate any Stonemaier games making the list? I don't want to be that presumptuous, Jeff. I don't think any Stonemaier games will make this initial list. Maybe someday. It would be quite an honor for them to be on there someday. But we've only been around for 12 years now. But I was informed about this in advance, and I feel like I made like a video celebrating one of those games. Not a Stonemaier game, but it's someone else's game. I can't remember which one though. Might have been Terra Mystica. I don't know. Hecate says, will the small eggs and baby fishes be available in a box sold separately? So that is how they currently are sold. So if you buy Finspan, you'll get the cardboard versions of the tokens that stand out from the board. They work just great. They're easy to flip over. The eggs are on one side, the young are on the other. But if you buy the deluxe add-on pack, it's a separate pack. And it looks like these look like that. These are the deluxe tokens. They don't come in the game. They are only available separately. Jan Williams says, how do you feel about all the hate ratings being given on BGG, specifically to games like Finspan? Is there something we can do about it as Stonemaier ambassadors? Rating it before release is so annoying. Yeah, I think hate in general is annoying and unfortunate. So what Jan Williams is referring to is that whenever a new game is announced, and we get this a lot at Stonemaier Games. I don't know if it's more than other companies. I have no idea. But a certain number of people will show up on Board Game Geek and rate it a 1. That this is oftentimes their opinion about the idea of the game because they haven't played the game yet, or how they feel about Stonemaier Games, maybe how they feel about me. I don't know. I don't think it's great. When I rate games on Board Game Geek, I do so because I've played the game and that's my opinion about the game. And I would love for more people to do that, or I would love for people to do that in general. However, the rating system can be used by anyone however they want. So, Jan Williams, I think the best way that you can counter hate is with love, and in this case, with your true feelings about the game. Because you may play Finspan, and it may not be for you, but at least you've played it then, and you can rate it honestly based on your rating. So, I think the best way to counter it is to play the games and then rate your honest opinion for those games on Board Game Geek. Yeah. Sam says, do you have a favorite card from Finspan? Sam, yeah, I've been asked this a few times, and I haven't had a great answer other than I do really like the flying fish on the box. There are 2 flying fish in the game. Now that I'm trying to think if I have a better answer now that I've played the final production version of Finspan so much. Oh man, because there's so many cards in Finspan where if you, based off a single card, it can really reshape your strategy based on a when played power or an end game power. And I don't know if I have a specific card. I just like how much a game of Finspan, a single game of Finspan can change and feel completely different from another game based on a single card. And not any one specific single card, but just you happen to have a card in your hand that says, like, when you play this card, put an egg on every big fish, because they're big, medium, and small fish in Finspan. And then you're like, okay, well, I will try to play every big fish that I can. And that it's just it's really cool. Michael and David did a really good job with this in subtle ways that I'm still discovering even now after playing it a ton before it was published. Let's see. Charles says, any plans to release the 2 plastic mechs for Gears of Corruption as you did for the other mechs? Charles, it's a good question. And this was something that's puzzled me a little bit today. Let's see. No, I don't have an answer from Alex yet, because I thought we had remade them. I thought we had made them and made more. But it appears that we don't. Oh, looks like we have I'm sorry if I've overlooked this. We have a special guest here. David, hello.
Hello.
Let me put my my headphones in so I can hear you, David. 1 second. Sorry if you've been waiting there, David. I've been going off and talking.
No, I just got here. So, yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I can hear David now. Okay, David, can you say that again?
Oh, yes. I said I just got here. So,
good.
No waiting time. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
So, David, I was just lauding elements of Finspan. David is the co-designer of Finspan, and I invited the designers to show up today if they want to, and David has made a few minutes to show up. Yeah. So, David, thank you so much. How's the launch day going for you so far?
It's going great. I've had a number of other meetings, but it's been really fun to see the response. And I have one, so I didn't have
right
to be involved with the launch specifically.
Yeah. So, David, I know we have some Finspan questions here today. Let me throw a few at you. Flo says, in Finspan, how do public versus personal goals affect interaction and strategy? So Flo's referring to, like, in Finspan, we have an achievement board where there's one preset side, one variable side, but you also have a bunch of personal goals, like the kind I was talking about a second ago, where you might be trying to play a fish that gives you a bunch of eggs, gives you a bunch of points at the end of the game. So, yeah, David, how do you feel about that question? How do public versus personal goals affect interaction and strategy in your view?
Well, Michael and I played this head-to-head considerably, obviously, as you would imagine. And of course, we play tested it with other people many, many times. And when Michael and I play it, we almost always play the competitive side. So we're always giving, the bonus of 3 points. And it is always a strong impact on our play. I'm always looking at how many rows does Michael have? How many eggs does he have? How many turns does he have? Is he going to do eggs on the next turn? So for us, it ended up being very very interactive in that sense of watching, and what they're doing is going to affect my turn. And of course, in a one-on-one, you have to really think about, do I want to play a card that is that it's going to give a benefit to everyone else? Do I want to do that in one-on-one? If I do, I mean, you do have to consider that at any player count, but if I do, then I'm watching even more. Does Michael have a lot of predators? Do I want to run this now? Do I want to play this thing that's going to give everybody an egg on their in certain places? If he has all eggs there already, I'm doing it now. So it will affect your gameplay. It affected ours, I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. And I played at Geekway Mini. I played Finspan a lot with bigger groups. I did one head-to-head, also up to the full 5 players. And I would say the same thing. We always played on the basic side because I was teaching the game of the achievement board. But the all players benefits in particular, they had a pretty big impact on the game. I played with some groups where they stayed away from them. They didn't want to play those cards. They didn't want to activate all players benefits. I played with a very generous group at the end of the convention where they were having a blast activating the all players benefits. So either way, I think it impacts the interaction. I do have a quick question here from Eric. Eric says, I tuned in and heard you talk about something not fitting inside the Finspan box. What were you talking about? I was talking about the potential for rubber play mats. If we make rubber play mats, they're not going to fit into the box. I guess you could replace your original mats, but the play mats won't fit. And sorry, David, I'm gonna scroll through a couple different questions here. Chad says, at what price point does the champion discount kick in? It kicks in on any price point. It's a 20% discount on everything on the Stonemaier Games web store. Okay, here's a question for David. Is there a region for the fish chosen in Finspan, like with Wingspan?
Oh, no, it's all oceans. I was thinking region first for the zones, but yeah, the regions of the world, it's just all oceans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we figured we'd take a different approach than Wingspan because just to kind of invite people from around the world who know different fish from their area, and because it gives us an ability in expansions to instead focus on a specific ocean. Instead of doing that, we can focus on a specific type of aquatic creature.
And I don't know that the oceans is the same. Like, I think that there are the types of fish that are in the Atlantic versus the Pacific. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not a marine biologist, so I don't know for sure. I'm positive there are differences, but I think, a hammerhead shark in one ocean versus another, I don't know that that's significant enough to be a different game.
Right. Yeah. Carol says, this is a tough one to do. Favorites are tough, but Carol says, what is one of your favorite fish powers in Finspan so far? Do you have one, David?
Yeah, I have a couple. So to me, one of my darlings in this, which I was really happy to not have to kill during the process, was the idea of the eggs hatching into young and then moving. It was very early on. I was really excited about the opportunity to have all this life in your ocean moving around and using, having it go places that felt like it would be a living environment as opposed to a static place. And that was really kind of important to me from day one, I think. Mm-hmm. And when I joined the project, that was very exciting. And I'm really happy at how it kind of got smoothed out and integrated in the final. The final version is a lot more elegant than several of the ideas we tried.
Yeah. Well, this is good timing too. Michael, the co-designer, is also joining us. Michael, we were just talking about favorite fish powers in Finspan.
Favorite fish powers, probably the uber predator powers. Is that what David said? Nope.
David was talking about how the tokens can hatch and move around, and you have this living, breathing ocean. So less about the fish powers than about. Although there are fish powers that have them hatching. So yeah.
So when you play an uber predator, everybody gets to do a thing, and it's usually a cool thing, like put an egg on every predator. So everyone at the table, there's a lot of interaction in the game, but it's all positive by design. And so when you play an uber predator, it feels cool because you get lots of points and all that, and you can kind of try to time it so that you give yourself the most positive impact, and maybe your opponent's a little bit less positive impact.
Yeah,
Great
I
answers.
mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Uh-huh.
I like that as well. No, my favorite one, Michael, was the hatching eggs and having them move around and making them into schools and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's several powers that assist with that, but yeah, that's probably the most unique part of the game compared to the other span games.
Yeah. Quick customer service question here. Martin says, not sure if it was asked already, but how come Finspan is shipping to everywhere but the EU? Martin, we do ship to the EU. You're probably on the wrong web store. You need to go to our European web store, and then that one ships to the EU. Let's see. Let's see if this. Oliver says, do you have a prediction if there will be a fish from Finspan that will gain the same notoriety as the crows did in Wingspan? So talking about balance or fish that are perceived as overpowered. Do you have anything that has come to mind in your play since you play that since you've had the published version? We're like, oh, this one's a little bit too powerful.
Well, we did a lot of balancing. The one that this because it just happened the other night when I was playing with my son. The whale shark has the ability to, when you play it, it's the only fish that eats a whole school. So you eat a school of fish and you can play it. And he had done this incredible chain, and then he finished it off by just playing the whale shark, which means you effectively at the end of the game lose 6 points to gain 12. So I was just like, that fish is overpowered. It's so broken. But it's kind of more the timing of it, I think, that I was criticizing more than the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you want to be careful to do that after you score the bonuses for the schools.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
he was careful.
Well, your sons were really important during playtesting. I don't know if we've ever mentioned this anywhere, but Michael's sons, especially, I think Zach, is it?
Yeah. Jay probably played a lot more with us than anybody else, and he also kept up our spreadsheet and all that.
Right, Jay was able to break the game whenever there was a crack in it. That's what I remember.
He is. He's really good at coming up with broken things. He watches all these Magic the Gathering podcasts and stuff, and always is on top of like how games get broken out there. Since Magic's kind of like, I mean, almost every conceivable iteration of powers that existed in that game, he's become pretty good at just kind of being able to suss out problems.
So here's a game designer question here from Trishul. For Finspan, were there any special adjustments or considerations you had to scale it from 2 to 5 players? And it plays 1 to 5 players, but yeah, for higher player counts, lower player counts, what are your thoughts on that from a design perspective?
I mean, from a designer perspective, we always had that in mind. We were always thinking, okay, how is this going to feel at various player counts? And we always tested it at various player counts. As I mentioned earlier, we probably played it 2-player more than anything else because it was the 2 of us, and that was very convenient and easy. Even in our 2-player, I think the biggest consideration when you go from 2 to 5, certainly there are lots of other potential considerations, but the biggest one is usually time. And how long does the total game take? And when Michael and I were playtesting, we could do things to consolidate, or we could get a good idea or feel how long it would take at larger player counts. And that's where the overlapping of turns kind of came into play. Do you have more on that, Michael?
Yeah, I think with a lot of games, as you get to higher, it feels like if you play a game at a lower player count, the one that comes to mind is Terraforming Mars, because you still have to terraform Mars. It can feel like there's too much of a burden on you at a lower player count, whereas this one, the timing per player and all that is about the same. I would say that as you scale player count, if you have a very friendly group, they can play a lot of fish that can help everyone else. So you can have, we wanted to make sure that we ended up basically adding an extra row, if you'll recall, to the game. Like initially it didn't have that bottom row, because at a high player count where everybody's giving everybody everything, you could run out of room, right? And even though it's perfectly acceptable to fill your board, you can start playing fish over other fish to try to up your score, right? You take a tiny fish and you play a big scoring fish on top of it.
Mhm.
We wanted to make sure that people felt like they were still able to, make like the perfect tableau, even at higher player counts, where they could be helping each other by just saying, "Hey, you get an egg, you get a, you get a card, you get a," you know what I mean. There's a lot of friendly interaction that they could sort of decide to team up and get a lot of fish out before the end of the game, particularly at 4 and 5 players.
So I know you all have other things to do today, but I do have a few people who seem to be asking about your other things that you've worked on, other games that you've worked on. Can you maybe, David, let us know what other games that you are able to say that you have published or are publishing, and as a designer, or if you've worked on something as a developer. Two different roles. I think both of you have played those roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited that my Lego Monkey Palace game came out last fall, and Jamey had some favorite mechanisms, which was such a surprise and honor that you did that video. And then I have several that are coming soon. I have Crafting the Cosmos, which is right there, and Floristry is coming out. That's a game done. I formed a small publishing company with my design partner of a lot of other games, Tam, and this is the first game we're bringing to market. You can visit my website, davidgordongamedesign.com, and you can see all the things and projects that I have.
And Michael, what about you? Design or development?
Yeah, I've designed quite a few games. This is my first published designed game with my name on the cover. I've kind of done some ghost designing or whatever it might be called. And then I've developed quite a few games. I developed Rock Hard 1977 a little bit. I'm working on a game for a YouTuber. He shows mostly kids, but anybody how to fold paper airplanes, called Foldable Flight. I don't think the game has a name. I think it should just be called Foldable Flight, but he may call it something different. And I just work on a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of development for you, Jamey, just or play testing or whatever, just whatever's needed to make sure that a product's ready to go out the door.
Well,
I have a website too. I should probably say it. It's anarchygamestudio.com. Sorry.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you both chiming in today. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the time and creativity and love that you put into Finspan. I really am. I'm loving this game even more than I thought I would. And I knew I was going to like it, but there aren't many games that I play as much as I've played Finspan recently, and I'm still excited to get it back to the table. So thank you so much for making it. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for putting your faith in us.
That is such an honor, and thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciated it.
Well, thanks, guys. Have a good launch day. I'll get back to some questions here. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was really great for them to pop in. I know they're both busy, and yeah, they have been a pleasure to work with, truly. I know I scrolled past some questions that didn't really apply to David and Michael. I'll try to find them. If it's really important to you, you can feel free to repost it. I'll try to answer it. I saw a question, someone asking about why their shop pay credits aren't applying to their order, and I don't know. I don't know if our web store is set up to do that or not. I don't really know. I do see Jeff says, do you think you'll be bringing in freshwater fish in the future for Finspan? And I do think that's very likely. I think it's likely that we'll probably cover most types of aquatic creatures. A few that people have asked about that actually are in the game. There are sharks in the game, there are seahorses, and there are eels in the game, along with I think all those still count as fish, but they are all in the game. And if you're interested in a specific category of aquatic animal or a very specific aquatic animal that you want to see in the future Wingspan expansions, make sure to fill out the form on our website, Stonemaier Games, the Finspan page of our website. There's a form on that page, or linked to on that page, where you can choose categories like cephalopods and crustaceans and mammals like dolphins and whales and mollusks and all sorts of aquatic creatures that you can choose from there. Let's see. So Nick has a related question. All oceanic fish and no fish from lakes and rivers. There are some brackish fish, but mostly all oceans in Finspan. Yeah. Philip says, will we ever see that test Pokemon version of a Span game? We'll see about Pokemon. We reached out to the Pokemon company years ago to see if they would be interested in a Pokemon version of Wingspan, and they were not interested at that time, but they might consider it again someday. We'll see how they feel. I think the challenge with Pokemon is that there is already a card-driven Pokemon game. It's the Pokemon game, and so I can see why they wouldn't be interested in a Pokemon version of Wingspan. For us, I would say we are happy with having this as a trilogy of games: fish, dragons, and birds. There's a lot to explore within those categories, so we'll probably just focus on that for quite some time. Hecate asked actually a related question. Will there be other Wingspans for Africa, South America, and Antarctica? Those are the 3 remaining continents that we haven't covered yet, and we plan to cover all of them in Wingspan expansions. Carlos says, what's the #1 fish that you'd like to see included in a future expansion? I think this is probably a question for the designers, but for me, probably sea turtles. I really like sea turtles, so I love to see them in future expansions. Actually, and I forgot to mention that there are skates and rays in the core game as well. Oh, Steve has a fun question. Again, these would have been great questions for the designers. I'm sorry that we didn't get through all of these. But Steve says, is there a favorite place you'd like to go to observe fish? And I think that maybe the Great Barrier Reef would be pretty incredible to snorkel in and see all the fish that are there. Board Game Animal says, what was the most exciting thing for you guys to see once you had a final copy in hand? That's a great question for the designers. I'm sorry I missed it and didn't get to them. I'll let them know. Maybe they might still be watching this. And so maybe they might answer in the comments here or in the future on YouTube. Chad has another good question. What's the funnest fact you learned while researching fish characteristics? I don't have an answer for that. The designers might have an answer, but the fish facts are on the cards in Finspan. Let's see. Julie has a question too. Was there something early on you thought would stay the same during development that you ended up changing? Another good question for Michael and David. I'm trying to think if I can think of something like that. Well, I can mention, what's something that I thought might say the same? I did my Tales from Production video recently, and one of the things that I talk about, so this is a production thing, not a gameplay thing, but originally these tokens, the egg, school, and young tokens, they were fully illustrated, really beautiful illustrations. I really appreciate Anna for making them, but they blended in quite a bit with the ocean mat. And so they were hard to see. It's hard to scan your ocean mat. There are many times in the game where you need to scan your ocean mat and see, okay, these are how many egg tokens I have, or how many schools I have, or how many young I have. And they made it very difficult to do that, those fully illustrated tokens. So we moved to these simpler tokens that stand out, and it really does help with the functionality. Yeah, so that's something that changed later on. Let's see. The Infinite Dude says he showed his family Rolling Realms. He loved it. The game is full of so many other games and possibilities, other systems, mechanisms, or designs that you sense don't or can't work for Rolling Realms. Scaling roll and write game that we can add, and now we've added a bunch of different mini games to it for games designed by other designers, other publishers. But we also do that for our games, and we make these mini games. And really, the challenge that I have found, two challenges. One, that there's no interaction. This is a game intentionally designed, talking about Rolling Realms here, designed around no interaction, so that you can scale it, you can play it at any time. There's that. There's also the challenge of fitting the rules onto a single card, and so that is a big challenge there too. Gray Fox says, did you decide if you're going to Tantrum Con this year? I ended up deciding between Geekway Mini and Tantrum Con, and I went with Geekway Mini. And it also kind of inspired me to find another way to travel and play games with people from around the world. And so I am going on BGG at Sea, a game convention on a cruise ship, to Norway, a little bit in the UK, and then up to Norway this summer. I'm going to that. But Tantrum Con looks to be awesome. We will have an event there. I think it's the stamp swap event that we're having at Tantrum Con, but I could be wrong about that. Could be a different game. Make Kasperak. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. I'm sure. I really appreciate that you have a shipping warehouse in Canada, as this is uncommon. Is there a story behind why you chose to do that besides being awesome? Yeah, we've actually gone through several Canadian fulfillment centers. This might be our fourth. We haven't had great success with each of them, but this one seems to be working out pretty well. And the reason is regional friendly shipping. It's something that we've done since viticulture. How we've done it exactly has changed over the years, but since 2013, we were, I think, one of the first companies to do this, to realize that we didn't have to ship everything out of the US. We could work with fulfillment centers around the world and ship to customers in those regions from within those regions. And you've seen, I think this is actually fairly common now for companies to do this. We don't own a fulfillment center in Canada. We work with a fulfillment center in Canada. Let's see. Garrett says, did you end up watching any of those movies that you mentioned last week? The Conversation, 1917, Atonement. I haven't watched any of them yet. I came home from Geekway Mini kind of brain burned. And so I watched some lighter movies and some comedy specials and things like that. I'm watching The Traitors right now, the TV show. And I guess the main called Otto ended up being unexpectedly heavy. But no, I haven't watched them yet, but I am still on tap to watch all three of those movies. Yeah. Make says, will the Wingspan expansions and or the spin-off games be coming to Board Game Arena? Probably not expansions. Our approach with Board Game Arena is to put the core game there so people can discover and play the core game there and then decide if they want to get the game on their tabletop with the expansions. So it is more of an introduction to the game and also a way to play the core game with people around the world, but it is not a replacement for the entire brand of the game. So we don't really plan to put expansions there. I think we do hope to put eventually, after a couple of years after the release, we do plan to put Wormspan and Finspan there. Laura says, are there any planned expansions for Wormspan on deck? There are, Laura. We have one. It's in the progress chart on the news page of our website that we do have. I don't think I have it on the newsletter. Yeah, but we do have a Wormspan expansion in the works right now. Thank you, Mark, for repeating your question. Are there enough eggs, youngs, and school for a 5-player game of Finspan? Absolutely. Yes. Both in the core game and in the upgrade pack, there are enough tokens for a 5-player game. We did actually, in the very friendly game that I mentioned of Finspan that I played at Geekway Mini recently, where there was a lot of all players benefits being played and activated, we did run out of school tokens. We were using the deluxe school tokens, and so we just brought in some of the normal cardboard school tokens. I think that's pretty rare, and if it happens, the replacement temporarily. But yeah, I think it's pretty rare for that to happen. Let's see. G Money says, can you give us a clue as to your cat cameos in Finspan? I will just say that both of my cats, my late cat Biddy and my current cat Walter, they both do appear in Finspan, but I don't want to give any further clues than that. I would like you to discover that on your own. There's also another comment earlier that was mentioned, a good question earlier, but it was also something else that I want you to discover when you open your copy of Finspan. So I'm not going to answer that question either. Yeah. Thank you, Sammy, for saying this. Sammy says, thank you for making Vantage available at Geekway Mini. We really enjoyed our play. It was great to play with you and Becky and Andrea and Tim and Amber and Jeff. We played the first public game of Vantage, my big open world cooperative game at Geekway Mini last weekend. Peter says, what's one game category that you would like to design that you have not yet, or is there one that you would prefer to design again? Great question, Peter. And I'm going to answer this slightly adjacent to your question because very recently, I kind of decided that at Stonemaier Games, I would like to publish one game that is in the style of game that is light, short, easy to teach, and highly replayable. The type of game where you can explain the rules to the game on the back of the box in like 3 to 5 bullet points or visuals in an infographic. We don't have a game like this. The closest that we have is Between Two Cities, but even that is probably not the type of game that I bring out in the same way that I bring out a game like Caution Signs or The Mind or Blob Party. It doesn't have to be exactly like those games, but kind of in the realm of those games. And so I just recently decided that I would like to find a game like that, one of those games that that you can play and teach with anyone. It only takes a few minutes to play, and you kind of want to play it again right away oftentimes. And so I added that to the submissions page of our website. We would like to publish a game like that. This is a type of game that I have tried to design, and it's very difficult to design this type of game because it has to really, really stand out for it to be elevated to the level of games like Codenames. I think Codenames is one of the top games in this category. Scout is kind of along these lines, although I'm looking for one that scales ideally from 2 to 7 or 8 players. So this is a big design challenge. I'm hoping to find one that someone else has designed because I don't think I have the design skills to do it. I've tried it, I failed. So we'll see if someone else can do it. And if you do have a game like this, or you want to work on a game like this, there's no rush, there's no deadline. We're probably only going to publish one of them. We just want one. Fill out our submission form on our website when you have that game. And this is, I should clarify, it's not a game idea. We're not looking for ideas. We're looking for a fully designed, fully play tested game. Let's see, Eric. Let's see. So Eric says it's possibly, but can you form the world map with the back of all player boards from Finspan? I noticed Australia on the back of one of the boards watching the unboxing video. That's a good observation there, Eric. Yeah. Let's see. Steve asked for some more details about the Between Two Castles Essential Edition. So this is Between Two Castles, the core game, combined with the Between Two Castles expansion, Secrets and Swareways, are all in one box. That's all that it is. We didn't know about the game. It's just a combined version of the game. Miles says he's also enjoying, this is Traders Season 3, the U.S. Traders Season 3. I'm really enjoying it. I'm through episode 3 as well, Miles. James says, did you know from the get-go that Finspan was going to be less complex than Wingspan, or did that idea emerge after development on the game started? This was a goal that we had for the game. When we decided to make Wormspan, which we intended to be a slightly heavier version of Wingspan, we also decided at the same time to make Finspan being a slightly less complex version of Wingspan. Here's David popping in. David is Connie who designed Apiary and Wormspan. And David, always a big help answering questions for those games. You've probably seen him on social media if you've ever asked a question about Wormspan or Apiary. Bart says, if you want to share how many copies of Finspan did you make? Yeah, I don't know if, here, you can, it's right up here. I have the 0 copy. We made 80,000 copies in the first printing of Finspan. So we're hoping that's enough. That's a big risk for us to take to make that much without asking any money from anyone in advance. But hopefully it works out. Helen asked what the code name for Finspan was. The code name was Crow. We used 4-letter words for our code name, and this was also a nod to the fish crow. The fish crow. Jeremy says you do a lot of things in Stonemaier Games, like design games, publish content to your blog or website, go to conventions. I don't go to many conventions, but development, production, I'm sure there's more. Project management is a big part of my job. Of these responsibilities, what is your favorite and why? Honestly, truly, my favorite is that I have variety. My favorite thing is that I have variety. It isn't any one of those particular things. I just love having a job with a lot of variety. Tim says, does the Finspan box have a fishy smell? Hopefully not. Mine doesn't. Jan William asked, what Stonemaier Games will come to Board Game Arena next? Our kind of partnership with Board Game Arena is that's information for them to share when they're ready. Oftentimes they put one of our games on alpha before that I knew they were working on, but without me even knowing. So I can't reveal that information. That's for BGA to announce. Chad says, did the Vantage players at Geekway Mini survive their planet? They did. They actually won the game of Vantage. We recently increased the playing time on the box of Vantage because I think a more accurate reflection of the playing time of Vantage isn't 1 to 2 hours. It's more like 2 to 3 hours. That scales up or down by player count, but I want players to feel like they have enough time to follow all their intrinsic motivations in Vantage when they're exploring this planet. So it was really impressive that I think it was like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours of playing Vantage at Geekway Mini, they outright won a 6-player game. They did something to make that a little bit easier, or really a lot easier, but they did it, and it was pretty impressive. Yeah, Jeff said they did survive the planet and accomplish a few goals. They did. Julio says his group and him are attempting a 10 by 10 board game challenge this year. Have you heard of it? Yes. This is the concept where you choose 10 games and choose to play those games 10 times each, which I think is awesome, going deep into 10 games instead of trying to play like 100 different games, as I often do, partially for the YouTube channel. So that's awesome. Yeah. Which games, Julio, did you choose for your 10 by 10 challenge? Or are you choosing on a rolling basis throughout the year? But I think it's also good to leave a little bit of flexibility there. Adam says, what's your favorite disc golf course that you've played? My favorite is probably Unger here in St. Louis. Unger Park is really, really great. But we have a lot of great disc golf parks in St. Louis, and even a few that are like 30 to 45 minutes outside of St. Louis. Adam says, will you restock the Shark Frenzy discs? Yes, they sold much faster than I thought. I'm sorry about that they sold out, but doesn't take all that long for us to make more, and we will make more. So make sure to sign up for a back in stock notification so I know how many to make. I'll take a look at that form probably tomorrow and place the order then. Hey, Mondo is popping in to say hi. Hey, Mondo, good to see you. Ivan says, I suggest you check out Tangram City by Uwe Rosenberg. I do. Yeah, I've played Tangram City. I have a video about it. Really, really cool game from Uwe. Yeah. Let's see. Chris says, did David and Michael also help design the Finspan Rolling Realms promo? They did not. No, I think Carell designed this one. Oh, Carell and Ryan Davis designed the Finspan promo for Rolling Realms. Garrett says, was the mass production button officially pushed for Vantage? Yeah, so this is when we start actual mass production for our games. Kind of. I'm waiting on the digital proofs from Panda, and actually, normally I would have received those digital proofs by now. So I'll do a quick check-in about that. So we made a few revisions after playing the pre-production copy, and then we send all the true final files to Panda, and they set the cards on all the big card sheets and things like that. That's probably what's taking so long, because there are a lot of card sheets in Vantage. Yeah, I'll check in on that. So we haven't approved the final revised digital proofs yet for them to actually do that, but I'm hoping to do that this week. Greg, thank you, Greg, for reposting this. He said, thank you for promoting Play and Win and your support of Play and Win at various conventions. He's looking forward to TokenCon coming up in March. That's awesome. Yeah, I need to send out the Play and Wins for March, but I'm going to wait till probably after this pre-order cycle. So I'll probably do it in early February. Yeah. So yeah, I did a post about Play and Wins the other day. This is a system where you go to a convention, you check out a game from their Play and Win library, you play the game, and if you really like it, that you put your name essentially in a big sorting hat. And at the end of the convention, they pull names out of this, oftentimes a digital sorting hat. And for the games that you won and put your name in for, you have a chance of winning those games, or at least one of them. The Geekway limits it to one win per person. But so it's a really great play a variety of games, even games they didn't expect to play, just because they have a chance of winning them. And if they didn't win them, there's a greater chance that they might go out and buy them then, which is good for the publisher too. So it's kind of a win-win-win for the conventions, the attendees, and publishers. My video this past weekend, trying to think of what I posted about this past weekend. Oh, I posted about game series. I was kind of highlighting that the Finspan series or the Wingspan series of games is not the only game series that exists. There's actually over 40, maybe even over 50 different series of games where they use a shared foundational mechanical element, and they branch off from that and do cool, innovative stuff with spin-offs and sequels and things like that. So talked about that on my YouTube channel this past week. Let's see. I'm just scrolling down looking for questions here. From a publishing perspective, how do you feel about games that have themes tied to very specific locations in the real world, like specific cities, countries, etc.? In general, actually, I don't know if I have a global thought about that, Matt. I think if it fits the theme of that city really, really well, or that specific place, that's great. I love when games are tied to specific mechanisms. Yeah, I think it really depends on the game for me. For publishing them at Stonemaier Games, I would say that in general, we are cautious about real world places, people, events, just because of the potential complications that can arise from bad things that have happened in history in real world places, by real world people, and the real world events. Michael says, can you say what other games in the world of Wingspan you're thinking of? Insect Span, Cat Span. So Michael, just to clarify, we're happy with the trilogy of games. So we're not thinking of other games in the Span world. I think with fish, dragons, and birds, we're going to stay busy for a long, long time. Nicole says, how do you plan to celebrate today's successful launch? I don't know. I don't really. I'm not much of a celebrator for things like this. I'm just trying to serve you, and so hopefully our team can do a good job of serving you today. Yeah. Patrick says, any updates on Vantage? I actually did send an update on Vantage this past Monday. So if you want to see a pretty robust update about Vantage, I do one once a month. You can see that update, and they're archived on the Vantage page of our website. In case you don't want to subscribe to them, you can just go and look at the archived updates on that page. And it is on track for a release in 2025, indeed. Tyler also did a 10 by 10 challenge, and so he started with some games and he's adding some on the fly, like Finspan. Andrew says he's trying to order Finspan with the upgraded components and have the membership, but it's not taking off the discount. So Andrew, make sure that you're logged in. The system has to be able to see that you are a champion by you logging in using your champion email. It's also possible that your champion membership has expired. So in that case, you can just add it to your cart along with the other stuff, and it'll apply then. And if it still isn't applying then, I would go ahead and place the order just so you don't miss out on something that maybe we sell out on. So go ahead and place that order and let us know the order number at contact@stonemaier.com so we can fix anything that might be broken with it. Dennis says, if you do a brand game, do you first make a fully functional prototype or do you pitch an idea first? Like an IP game. I'm pitching to Disney to make a Frozen themed game. I would make something first. I would always make something first before I pitch. Ideas are easy. Execution is what really matters, in my opinion. Wendy says, does Walter like playing with the drawstring on your hoodie? This would be very popular with the shelter kittens I volunteer with. That's awesome that you volunteer with kittens, Wendy. Walter does love strings and ribbons. He generally doesn't play with them when they're attached to me, but he does love strings and ribbons. How many games are you working on as a designer at the moment? I usually work on 2 games at a time. Currently, I have 3 games that I'm bouncing back and forth on. Yeah, 3 different games. And actually, as a designer, I also have other games that I am the designer of that are in different stages of the process beyond the design stage. Like Vantage, for example. Vantage is a game that I designed, but it's entering production now. Sorry. Philip says, what movie did you end up watching when your wife was out of town? Megan's my domestic partner. We're not married, but when Megan was out of town, I ended up watching A Man Called Otto. That was the movie that I watched. I watched some other shows and things like that, but I don't think I watched any other full movies yet. So I still need to watch Atonement, The Conversation, 1917, some movies that you all spoke highly of last week. Julio, I asked Julio what is on his 10 by 10 list, and he said Island, Dice Throne, Architects of the West Kingdom. All great games. G-Money says, would you consider Love Letter as a game that is part of a series? I would consider it. Yeah. Steve says, can we expect a Finspan Rolling Realms play this week? Well, let me ask you. Next week is Rolling Realms week. I'm going to do live plays of Rolling Realms next week. Do you want me to play with the Finspan promo, knowing that most people probably won't actually have received it yet? Or do you want me to wait for the next month's live play? Or both. I could also potentially do both. But I just know if I play with it next week, there'll be a number of people who can't join, who can't play along because they don't have that promo yet. Bart says, I love to play games cooperatively. Do you have any plans for cooperative mode for Finspan? We don't. I know some games do this where they have a competitive mode, cooperative mode. We kind of go all in on the mode that is for that specific game. I think sometimes when you add different modes like that, I don't know. It's tough to make a competitive game a cooperative game. It's tough to make a cooperative game a competitive game if they're designed with the intent of being one or the other. So we will have a solo mode for Finspan, and you could play that solo mode with other people. And maybe, like we did with Wingspan, maybe that solo mode will include some cooperative rules at some point. But we don't have any plans for that for Finspan's core. We did it for viticulture, and I just don't like for viticulture. We did the viticulture world expansion, and it's done pretty well, but it didn't seem to, given the popularity of viticulture, that expansion didn't seem to excite as many people as I thought, because I think maybe when you have a cooperative game, a competitive game that most people think of as competitive, they're playing it because it's a competitive game. They're not looking for a cooperative variant. I understand that you do, Bart, but I'm explaining this as to why maybe it's not a focus for us to do that in general. Arl says, when will Finspan launch in Brazil? So Grok Games in Brazil is one of our partners in Brazil. That is partially a question for them. If you're asking when the English version of Finspan will launch in Brazil, that's today. I know we don't ship to Brazil because we have too many issues shipping from the US to South America, but you can use a shipping forwarding service to find an address in the US that will ship to South America. Let's see here. Just going for a few more questions here. And Sanerarium says, do you have any plans for making more games in the My Little series? Yeah, I wouldn't quite call it a series. We just did one of those games, My Little Scythe. We don't have any plans to do any other games in that series. Oh, let's see. Parker has an example of a game that does have a great co-op mode. Everdell Duo, I think, has a cooperative version of Everdell for 2 players. Michael says, do you have a particular co-op game that I love? I do love a lot of different cooperative games. I have a couple of videos about this topic. Let's see, offhand. Well, I'll pull them up. I'll see. Because I have videos about cooperative games that... Sorry, I'm trying to get my screen to work here. That screen isn't doing it. Why is that not doing it? I'm trying to get my screen go out of full screen, and it doesn't want to. There we go. So I view cooperative games in 2 different categories. One are games where you're playing against the game, where the game is actively trying to defeat you. And the other are limited communication games where you're trying to solve a puzzle together with other players. And honestly, yeah, I actually don't have to look at my list because I know my favorites are in that genre where you're working together to solve a shared puzzle. These are games like The Gang, like Blob Party, So Clover, just one. They don't all have to be that light, but I love, and The Mind, if I forgot to mention that one, I love games like that where you're trying to solve a puzzle together with other players. Jake says, will there be a digital version of Wormspan, or after all, Wingspan is out? So Monster Couch is the digital company that works on this this line of games. They are currently working on Wingspan Asia, and when they're done working on that, they're going to work on Wormspan. And when they're done working on that, they're going to work on Finspan. But full digital versions of games take quite a bit of time, and they put you've probably seen Wingspan Digital. It's a pretty impressive production. They put a lot of time into it. Let's see. Trishul says, what game is the collage of cards in the frame behind you? This is our game, or my game, and our game. This is Smitten. This is the game that we released for our 10th anniversary. We're reprinting it now. It's out of stock now, but this is a 2-player cooperative game where you're trying to solve a puzzle together. Talking about cooperative games that I love. It's a limited communication puzzle to solve with one other player, or solo. It plays 1 to 2 players. This is Smitten. That's a player count that we don't often publish, but we made an exception for this game that we gave away as part of our anniversary. Let's see. Leon says, do you have in mind any kind of light war game? It would be very interesting to see something of this kind in your studio style. Direct conflict isn't something that we do all that often. We do have Scythe. Scythe, I don't know if I'd really call a war game, but Scythe is probably as close as I want to get to conflict in a game. I will say, so it isn't something that we're probably pursuing. I appreciate your interest in it. But I will say that I recently played the Mistborn deck building game, and I really like the combat system in that game. It's very similar to King of Tokyo, where you either have a target on you, and when you have that target, all other players, whenever they deal damage, they're dealing it to you. But whenever you deal damage as the target, you deal that damage to all other players or each other player. And I really like that system. That way you aren't feeling like you're targeting someone specifically. You're not acting out of spite, or it doesn't feel like you're acting out of spite. Instead, it's a choice to have that target, to give up the target. I think that's a really neat system. Kelper says, have I played any new trick-taking games recently? I played a shedding game called Lucky Jack, and I played a poker-style game, The Gang, at Geekway Mini. But new trick takers, I don't think I've played any in the last few weeks, at least, that I can think of. Ivan says, one of the rarest genres is one versus all. Will Stonemaier Games design that kind of game in the future? I've played around with it a little bit. I do love Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard is one of my favorite games of all time. It is one versus many. I think it's awesome. So I think it is. And actually, when I was a kid, I designed my own version of Scotland Yard when I was very young. I think maybe 12 or 13, I designed one. So we don't have any plans for one, but it is, I would say it's possible in the future that we might have a game like that. What is your favorite, Ivan? Do you have a favorite one versus many game? Paul says, have I watched the newest episode of Severance? I'm waiting for Megan to return from her trip so that we can watch it together. So no, I haven't watched any Severance yet. Let's see if I had any other topics today. We'll go a little over time. That's fine. I did want to, my coworkers, Dave and Alex, both had birthdays recently. I really appreciate them as people and as friends, as coworkers. So I wanted to celebrate their birthday. I had a great chat with Zach from Covenant yesterday. Covenant is a company that specializes in mostly expandable collectible games and often more niche games, not like Magic the Gathering, or even not like Pokemon. And I had an awesome chat with Zach about 5 games that I knew very little about, and he shared his favorite mechanisms of those games. I don't know when that'll be on YouTube, but it will be. It'll be on our channel in the near future. Right after this, actually, right now, Man vs. Meeple is going to do a live play of Finspan. In fact, it probably just started. So stop listening to me. Go watch the live play from Man vs. Meeple on YouTube. They're doing a live play of Finspan right now. In fact, I'll try to close on that. And what is the other thing? We do have we have a Corel put together a phone wallpaper for Finspan that you can download if you'd like. It's on the public files of our Dropbox, which you can find links to it. Like if you go to the Finspan page of our website, there's a link to the rule book. Same area of our Dropbox, you can find this this phone wallpaper. And last, I guess I did want to mention that I've gotten really into mocktails recently, using kind of fancy non-alcoholic liqueurs. And I don't know, I wanted to talk about that a little bit more. Maybe we'll talk about it next week, because I want to see if any of you have a favorite mocktail or a favorite mocktail liqueur that you recommend me trying. Just a fun thing that I've gotten into a little bit recently. I do drink a little bit of alcohol, but I've really enjoyed having these fun tasting beverages that taste like a little bit like like their real versions, like a dark and stormy, but without actual alcohol. So I don't have any of the negative effects of alcohol, like sleeping poorly, things like that. Anyway, okay. I think that's good, because I want you to head over. Oh, one more question here. Eric says, how difficult was the process of choosing the fish in Finspan with so many species? I can understand that it can be really stressful or give headaches. There are a lot to choose from. We tried to choose like the best of and the most interesting of, but there are a lot that are very interesting that we didn't include in the core game. Just trying to get a kind of a wide array of fish in the core game. So it was tough. We had some help from people who contributed different ideas and whatnot, including marine biologist Bryn. And yeah, so it was a fun task to do. And it's also fun to look forward and seeing what else we can add to the game. Yeah, thank you. I see some other nice comments here. I'm going to sign off for now, go get some lunch and answer some emails about Finspan so we can best serve you on launch day. But go head over to Man vs. Meeple. Check out their live play of Finspan if you have time. And yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. I'll see you next Wednesday. Take care. Bye.